The galaxy's council watches in horror as a lone human warship, unseen for decades, emerges from the shadows. It destroys an entire alien fleet with terrifying precision, sending shockwaves through galactic politics. The Council is forced to confront a question they had long hoped would never resurface. Can humanity be allowed to continue wielding such unimaginable power? The council room was eerily silent as the holographic display flickered to life. These alien species from across the galaxy, once the pinnacle of power, now sat in stunned disbelief as they observed a single human warship, an ancient relic, emerging from the darkness of space. It was the ship that the galaxy had banished from the records, long thought destroyed, buried beneath the forgotten ruins of a dead world. Yet here it was, unmistakable and alive. The ship was enormous, nearly double the size of any warship in the known galaxy. Its hull, black as the void, shimmered with an unnatural sheen, its surface smooth and seamless, like the surface of a mirror reflecting 1,000 stars. But it wasn't the ship's size or beauty that made it so terrifying. It was the force it wielded. At the center of the council chamber, the Empress, the leader of the galaxy's largest empire, stood, her eyes narrowing as she watched the hologram of the human warship. A chill ran down her spine, and she resisted the urge to take a step back. The fear in the room was palpable. It was the kind of fear that made even the most seasoned warriors tremble. No one had expected the humans, once thought weak and primitive, to ever build something like this, and now here it was. Is it real?" the warlord from the Yereth race asked, his voice trembling with disbelief. His species had long been the galaxy's greatest conquerors, but even they were no match for the kind of weapon that now appeared before them. "It's real," the Empress replied coldly, her eyes still fixed on the hologram. "The Ragnarok. They called it that for a reason." The room was quiet, save for the soft hum of the council's holoprojector. The alien representatives shifted uneasily, exchanging glances as they tried to process the enormity of the situation. The Ragnarok was no ordinary warship. It was a weapon so powerful, so advanced, that it had been outlawed from galactic warfare after the humans' last failed war. Its creation had been a gamble, a desperate bid to turn the tide in a war that was lost. The galaxy had outlawed its use, sealed its records, and erased any trace of it. They had believed it gone, forgotten in the dust of history. But the Ragnarok had returned, and it wasn't just an old weapon. It was a symbol of humanity's fury, its vengeance, and it was far more deadly than anyone could have predicted. "How many ships are in their fleet?" the warlord asked again, his voice strained. "One," the Empress said, her voice barely above a whisper. The hologram zoomed in on the ship as it fired its first salvo, an impossibly fast burst of energy that tore through the heart of an alien fleet, cutting it in half with an ease that made the surrounding council members flinch. The energy pulse was unlike anything the council had ever seen. It wasn't just a weapon. It was a force of nature. Alien ships exploded in flashes of light, their once mighty forms reduced to nothing in a matter of seconds. The Ragnarok didn't even pause. It moved with the precision of a predator, firing again and again, until the enemy fleet was nothing but debris floating in space. It was methodical, terrifying, and impossible to stop. "Stop it!" the warlord from the Salian race screamed. "Activate shields, send reinforcements, now!" But the orders came too late. As fast as the fleet tried to retaliate, the Ragnarok countered with devastating precision, its energy beams tearing through shields like they were paper, rendering any defense useless. The remaining ships tried to flee, but the Ragnarok was relentless. It followed, picking them off one by one until the battlefield was silent. "That's it," one of the council members, a slender creature from the Frara species, whispered in shock. "They've wiped out an entire fleet by themselves." No backup, no reinforcements, just one ship. The room was still, the council members, too stunned to speak. Fear and awe filled the air. How could this be? The humans, those who had once been seen as an insignificant species, primitive and unworthy of notice, had just demonstrated power that could destroy entire fleets. And there, on the screen, the Ragnarok continued its merciless course, leaving behind only the shattered remnants of the fleet. Why are they doing this? The Empress muttered to herself, her mind racing. They were supposed to be a forgotten species. How did they get their hands on this kind of technology? A sharp voice broke through her thoughts. The humans, they have always been underestimated. But this is something else entirely. We never should have allowed them to survive. The Empress turned, her expression cold. No, we will deal with them. We will wipe them out. No one, not even them, is beyond our reach. She turned back to the hologram of the Ragnarok, now poised on the edge of another attack. Its next move would bring the full fury of the galaxy to bear. But one thought lingered in her mind, one thought she could not shake. What if they had come back to take revenge for a reason? What if humanity was no longer the prey but the predators? The Ragnarok's energy banks flared, its next attack imminent. The Empress's gaze hardened. "I want everything we've got," she commanded, her voice steely with resolve. "Prepare our fleet, prepare for war." But deep down, she couldn't shake the chilling feeling that humanity was no longer something they could just crush. "Let them come," she said, more to herself than anyone else. "We will deal with them in due time." The council waited in silence as the Ragnarok powered up again. This time the galaxy would witness the full wrath of humanity's return. Meanwhile, aboard the Ragnarok, Commander Alana Davis stood silently on the bridge, watching the destruction unfold. Her face was hard, unreadable. She wasn't fighting for glory or conquest. She was fighting for survival, for Earth, for everything humanity had lost. "They'll come for us," Davis said softly, her voice laced with grim determination. "But they'll never see us coming." Her crew, all of them hand-picked, stood around her, ready. They had one purpose, to ensure that humanity would never be underestimated again. With a final, quiet command, the Ragnarok systems powered up. For the next strike, the galaxy would never be the same again. The council chamber was a cold, sterile environment filled with ancient alien leaders who had long ruled the galaxy. The air was thick with the weight of their fear, their voices quiet as they tried to digest the raw footage they had just witnessed. Their collective minds were struggling to comprehend what had just happened. The Ragnarok, a human warship, had destroyed an entire fleet in a matter of minutes. The galaxy's greatest empires had never faced anything like it, and they didn't know how to respond. The humans, this ship, how is it possible? The voice of the Arcturan representative, a towering figure with thick armored plating, was shaking. "We've watched them for centuries, relegating them to a distant, insignificant corner of the galaxy. How did they develop such a weapon?" The Empress stood silently, her sharp eyes fixed on the council table. Her mind was racing, piecing together fragments of information that did not add up. Humanity was not supposed to be a threat, not anymore. But the Ragnarok was more than a weapon. It was a force of nature. "We have made a grave mistake," the Empress said at last, her voice cold. "A species that we once thought unworthy of our attention has built a weapon capable of obliterating us all. The Ragnarok was never meant to exist. It was banned from galactic warfare after the last failed war. We never thought they would return with it. You say it was banned." The voice of the Miru leader, a fragile but calculating species, was tinged with disbelief. "Why? What was it capable of? What have we overlooked?" "Everything," the Empress replied grimly. The Ragnarok is a weapon that can manipulate the very fabric of space and time. It can control gravity fields, cause localized quantum shifts, and project energy blasts with such power that entire fleets disintegrate with a single strike. But that is not the worst part. The worst part is the ship itself. The humans built it with a singular purpose, to survive, and in that survival, they have become a force that can no longer be ignored. Another voice from across the room spoke, a warlord from the Yeroth species, whose voice was low but filled with rage. "We have allowed them to survive for too long. Now they come to our doorstep with a weapon that could erase entire civilizations. With a thought, what are we to do?" The Empress turned slowly, her gaze cold. "We do what we must. We eliminate the threat before it grows. We destroy them now, while we still have the advantage." The room fell silent, each leader weighing the Empress's words carefully. In their eyes, the Ragnarok was no longer just a weapon. It was a declaration of war, a challenge to everything they had worked for, everything they had controlled for millennia. Meanwhile, aboard the Ragnarok, Commander Alana Davis stood in front of the bridge's large window, staring into the void of space. Her expression was focused, determined, but there was a quiet intensity in her gaze. The galaxy had underestimated humanity, written them off as weak, insignificant. But now, with the Ragnarok under her command, she knew it was time to show the galaxy just how wrong they had been. "Commander," Lieutenant Maria Stone said, her voice cutting through the quiet, "we've received another transmission. The Empress is calling for reinforcements. They're mobilizing their entire fleet." Davis turned slowly, her eyes meeting Stone's. "Let them come." "We don't have much time," Stone added, her tone urgent. "Their fleet is bigger than ours. If they catch up to us—" "We won't let them catch up," Davis interrupted, her voice firm. "We've had years to prepare for this. It's time they realized that humanity isn't just surviving anymore. We're here to win." The Ragnarok's engines hummed with power as Davis strode toward the tactical console. Her fingers flew across the controls, bringing up detailed data on the approaching alien fleet. It was massive, an armada of warships designed to intimidate, to crush any force that stood in its way. But the Ragnarok wasn't just any ship. It was humanity's ultimate answer to centuries of oppression. Davis studied the screen, analyzing the weaknesses in the enemy formation. She'd fought against greater odds before, but now, with the Ragnarok at her command, she felt the power surge through her veins. "Prepare the gravity wells," she ordered. "I want their fleet to feel every ounce of their arrogance before they even know we're here." The ship's gravity manipulation systems hummed to life, and Davis felt the subtle shift as the Ragnarok's power grew. Gravity wells would distort the fabric of space, forcing the enemy ships into tighter clusters. They would become sitting targets, unable to escape the devastation she was about to unleash. "Deploy the cloaking field," Davis continued. "We'll move in close and strike when they least expect it. We won't give them time to react." The crew moved quickly, their hands working in perfect unison. They knew what was at stake. The battle they were about to fight would change everything. There was no room for error. The galaxy would soon learn that humanity had risen, no longer the prey, but the apex predators. Back in the Galactic Council room, the Empress sat motionless, her eyes scanning the data streams as she awaited confirmation of the incoming attack. The alien fleet was already on the move, but Davis had made one fatal mistake. She had underestimated the Empire's resilience. The Ragnarok might be a terrifying weapon, but it wasn't invincible. "Activate the countermeasures," the Empress ordered, her voice cold as steel. "We will not let them break us." The Council's advisors scrambled to respond, quickly deploying their forces to intercept the human ship. The sheer size of their fleet was daunting, but the Empress wasn't worried. The Ragnarok might be powerful, but the Empire had survived. Worse, they had adapted, grown stronger, and now they would do so again. The Empress watched as the holographic projections showed the human ship decloaking, its weapons charging for the first strike. But she wasn't afraid. The humans had played their hand. Now it was time to show them the true power of the Empire. On the Ragnarok, Davis stood at the helm, her gaze fixed on the incoming fleet. The distance between them was closing quickly. She felt the tension in the air, the weight of the moment pressing down on her. This would be their most decisive battle yet. "Target their command ships," Davis ordered. "We take out their leadership first, break their will to fight." The Ragnarok fired its first volley, a devastating blast that tore through the front of the Empire's flagship. The alien ship disintegrated in a violent explosion, and Davis smiled grimly. "That's just the beginning," she muttered under her breath. The Ragnarok surged forward, its engines burning bright as it unleashed a barrage of energy blasts, each one hitting its mark with pinpoint accuracy. The Empire's fleet faltered as their ships tried to regain control, but it was too late. The gravity wells had already trapped them, forcing them into clusters where the Ragnarok's weapons could pick them off one by one. In the council room, the Empress watched in horror as the human warship methodically destroyed her fleet. Her mind raced, calculating their next move, but it was clear the Empire was losing. She had miscalculated, she had underestimated humanity. "We need reinforcements," she snapped, her voice filled with desperation. "Activate all available forces. We will not let them take us without a fight." But even as the words left her mouth, she knew the truth. The battle was already lost. Humanity had come for the Empire, and it was clear now that the galaxy would never be the same again. As the Ragnarok continued its relentless assault, Davis spoke quietly to herself. "No more hiding, no more running. This is humanity's time." The Ragnarok carved through space like an unstoppable force, its engines blazing as it tore through the remnants of the Empire's fleet. The once proud ships of the Empire were nothing more than floating debris, crippled and broken by the might of the human warship. The battle had escalated far beyond anyone's expectations. What had started as a desperate strike against an empire that had once considered humanity insignificant was now becoming a war of survival for the galactic overlords. Inside the Ragnarok, Commander Alana Davis stood resolutely at the center of the bridge, watching the destruction unfold on the massive view screen. Her hands were clasped behind her back, her posture stiff, every muscle in her body alert, but her mind was calm, focused. The human fleet was smaller, yet it had proven more than capable of dismantling the Empire's overwhelming strength. They had won their first engagement decisively, but Davis knew this was just the beginning. The Ragnarok had done its job, but now the real test was about to begin. "Commander, they're retreating!" Lieutenant Maria Stone's voice cut through the quiet of the bridge. "The Empire's remaining ships are trying to regroup. We've crippled their fleet, but we can't let them escape." Davis' expression hardened. She had expected this. The Empire would never surrender easily. Their pride was too great, their arrogance too ingrained. But this wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a fight for humanity's place in the galaxy. The Ragnarok had been built for one purpose: to ensure humanity's survival and to show the galaxy that they were not to be underestimated. "Intercept their retreat," Davis commanded. "I want no survivors. We end this today." The Ragnarok surged forward, its weapons powering up as it locked onto the scattered remnants of the Empire's forces. A volley of energy blasts erupted from the ship, striking down the weakened enemy ships with surgical precision. Each shot landed with devastating force, the energy beams slicing through shields and hulls as if they were paper, gravity wells. "Ready, Commander," Stone reported, her hands working quickly across her console. "We're pulling them back into range." "Do it," Davis ordered, her eyes never leaving the view screen. The Ragnarok's gravity manipulation systems hummed to life, and in a blink, the remaining Empire ships were pulled into a tight cluster, unable to escape the ship's grasp. The Ragnarok closed in, its weapon systems targeting the helpless ships. The remaining alien fleet stood no chance. One by one, the Empire's ships were destroyed in fiery explosions, their once pristine forms shattered by the relentless assault of the Ragnarok. The humans had come for the heart of the Empire, and they would leave nothing but ashes in their wake. "Status on their flagship?" Davis asked, her voice calm but filled with steely resolve. Stone checked her console. "It's still holding back, but its defenses are failing. It's trying to make a break for it, but it won't get far." "Not far." "Enough," Davis muttered. She turned to face her crew, her expression hardening. "This is where we finish it. The flagship is the heart of their operation. If we destroy it, the Empire will be crippled for good." Meanwhile, aboard the Empire's flagship, the situation had deteriorated rapidly. The ship had been battered by the relentless assault of the Ragnarok, its shields failing and its engines sputtering. The command deck was chaotic, with officers scrambling to make sense of the situation. The Empress stood at the front, her regal figure now overshadowed by the crushing weight of the inevitable. She had always believed in the invincibility of her empire, in the overwhelming power of her fleet, but the Ragnarok had proven her wrong. "Empress," one of her generals called out, his voice strained with panic, "we're losing control. The human warship has disabled our main systems. We can't outrun it. We need to—" "Shut up!" the Empress snapped, her eyes flashing with fury. She slammed her fist against the console, her expression twisted with a mix of disbelief and rage. "We will survive this. We have no choice." The general stepped back, fear flickering in his eyes. The Empress was a force of nature in herself. But now, in the face of this unimaginable threat, even she seemed uncertain. "Activate all remaining defenses," she commanded, her voice low but filled with the cold weight of desperation. "We will not let a human ship end our reign." But the officers could see it now. There was no hope. The Empire, which had once been the pinnacle of civilization, was crumbling before the might of a single warship, a creation of a race they had dismissed for so long. Humanity had returned, and now they were reaping the consequences. The Empress turned to her personal advisor, a tall, silver-skinned alien who had served her for centuries. "What do we do? They're coming for us." The advisor looked at her with a mixture of fear and respect. "There's nothing more we can do. We need to retreat, Empress. If we don't, they will finish us." The Empress's eyes narrowed. "No, not yet. We'll fight. We'll make them pay for what they've done." She moved to the command console, typing frantically. She had one last card to play, a weapon so powerful that it had been locked away for centuries. The ultimate deterrent, the weapon humanity could never have imagined. "We activate the Exodus Protocol," the Empress declared. "Prepare to launch the final weapon." Back on the Ragnarok, Davis was watching the alien flagship's movements closely. It was trying to escape, but she knew it wouldn't get far. The Ragnarok was faster, more agile, and better equipped for this fight. She was ready to end it, to finish what humanity had started. "Commander," Stone said, her voice tinged with unease, "we've detected an anomaly. The flagship is activating some sort of final weapon. It's unlike anything we've seen before." Davis narrowed her eyes. "What kind of weapon?" "It's too early to tell," Stone replied, her fingers flying across the console. "But it's a massive surge of energy. We need to stop it now before it goes live." Davis clenched her fists. "If they think they can destroy us with some last-ditch weapon, they're wrong. Prepare to disable it." The Ragnarok surged forward, its engines blasting as it closed in on the Empire's flagship. Davis watched with cold determination as the alien ship's weapon charged up. This was it, the final showdown. "Fire all weapons," Davis ordered, her voice unwavering. "Let's end this." The Ragnarok unleashed a barrage of energy blasts, each one finding its mark. The alien flagship's shields faltered, and the weapon began to overload. The flagship shuddered, its energy fields collapsing under the pressure, but the Exodus protocol was still active. Davis knew she had seconds to act. "Deploy EMP," she commanded. "Now!" The Ragnarok sent out an electromagnetic pulse that swept through the space around them, disabling the flagship systems and shutting down the final weapon. For a moment, there was nothing but silence. And then, with a final, deafening explosion, the Empire's flagship was gone. The galaxy was silent. The Ragnarok hovered in the void, its weapon systems powered down. The last remnants of the Empire had been reduced to dust. Davis stood at the helm, her eyes reflecting the destruction around her. She had done it. Humanity had won. But as the debris of the once mighty Empire floated in the emptiness of space, she knew that the fight wasn't over. The galaxy had seen the power of the human race, and it would never be the same again. "We've done it," Stone said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. "We've finished it." Davis didn't respond. Her gaze was fixed on the distant stars, on the vast emptiness that lay ahead. "Let's go home," she said finally, her voice soft but filled with an unshakable resolve. Humanity had risen, and now they would never be the prey again. The Ragnarok drifted through the emptiness, its engines humming softly as the remnants of the Empire's once great fleet floated in ruin around it. The galaxy had witnessed the power of humanity's vengeance, and it would never forget what they had unleashed. Commander Alana Davis stood at the helm, her eyes fixed on the shattered remains of the alien ships, her face a mask of quiet resolve. The destruction was complete. The Empire's heart had been ripped out, its once mighty fleets reduced to smoldering wreckage. Humanity had struck the first blow in a war that would change the course of history. But even in victory, Davis felt a deep weight on her shoulders. The battle was won, but the war for humanity's place in the galaxy was far from over. "Commander, the remaining Empire forces are retreating," Lieutenant Maria Stone reported, her voice filled with a mixture of awe and disbelief. "We've broken them. They're scattered, unable to regroup." Davis didn't answer immediately. Her mind was focused on the next steps. The Ragnarok had been humanity's weapon of reckoning, a symbol of everything they had been forced to endure. But now, with the Empire broken, there was still the question of what came next. There were other powers in the galaxy, factions that had watched with quiet interest as the humans fought back, and they would be watching now. "Prepare for the journey back to Earth," Davis said finally, her voice calm but filled with quiet authority. "We've won this battle, but the galaxy will never be the same again. Neither will we." As the Ragnarok powered up and began its journey home, Davis stood in silence, gazing at the void ahead. Humanity had risen from the ashes, not just as survivors, but as a force that would reshape the future of the galaxy. The battle for Earth had been won. The war for the galaxy had just begun. The universe was vast, its power structures in constant flux. But now humanity had made its mark, and the Ragnarok had proven one truth beyond doubt. The age of humanity had arrived, and they would no longer be the prey.